everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to my channel, and today I am recording in a little bit of a different spot than usual because I'm using my Chromebook. My phone is dying a very slow death and I probably need to get a new one, but I can't afford a new one right now, so I'm recording on my Chromebook. It's okay. We're going to work with it. So I've been talking about doing a weekly wrap-up video with you guys for a while now and just haven't had enough books to really pull off a weekly wrap-up video. So I was able to read enough this week to actually pull it off. And that's good news. So as you guys can notice though, it's also end of the day. I'm bumming today. And I was like, you know what? Let's get this done. Alright, so 2 things I read last week that are a little bit kind of not books, but they're definitely counting as reading. The first one is I of course read my Bible study book. We are still in Systematic Theology by Wayne Grudem, and I read the chapter on angels and the chapter on Satan and demons because those are the 2 chapters we're in. So like last week I finished up the angels chapter because we have Bible study on Monday, and then after that I read the Satan and demons chapter because we have Bible study tomorrow. We have it every Monday. So that's what we're reading there. And then the second thing I'm reading that's not a book, but counts as reading, is I am reading through the Certified Hotel Revenue Management certification booklet because I'm hopefully going to be taking a test here in a couple weeks to get my certification to be a Certified Hotel Revenue Manager. Fancy. And it's basically like a 466-page PDF, and you have to sit there and like highlight the PDF and write notes. It's like legit studying for a test. It stinks, but it's okay. I'm going to get through it and hopefully pass my test. So yay. So those took up a good chunk of time, especially the revenue manager stuff, because it's studying for a test. So you're actually taking notes and things. So after I did those, I only read like 3 books, and that is okay. We're going to talk about the 3 books that I read. So I ended up downloading 2 novellas off of Amazon Kindle Unlimited program thingy. Because I don't know that I want to keep my Kindle Unlimited program. I'm looking at notes on my phone if you're wondering. I'm doing this backwards because my phone's dying. But anyway, I don't know if I want to keep Kindle Unlimited. I'm kind of going back and forth on whether or not I want to keep it because I haven't been too impressed with a lot of the books I'm seeing. What I'm finding is it's a lot of like graphic erotica romance novels or self-published stuff that's not really edited well or presented well. And I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm just saying that it's not what I thought it was going to be. And so I don't know that I'm going to keep this subscription. I've been trying to read more on it to see if it's something I want to keep paying for. But I don't know. I haven't quite decided yet. So I'll let you guys know what I do decide. But I decided to download a couple of novellas because I wanted just short books I could sit down and maybe read like in one evening because I know that it's hard for me to find time to read these days. So the first one I downloaded was called Captured by Love. Sorry, I can't even read. By Ella Good. And this one was like a 92-page novella. And it was really short and really quick read. But it was just okay. It was a story of this woman named Dove who moves into this dingy apartment, and she meets her neighbor across the hall, Jay, or down the hall. I don't know where Jay is her neighbor. He's somewhere in the hall. And he borrows milk from her when he's making milk and cheese. Milk and cheese. Anyway, he borrows milk from her, and that's how they meet. And obviously they get to know each other, and they go out to eat, and they blah, blah, and they start dating, and they fall in love. And the big secret, which this is not even a spoiler because it's in the book's description, the big thing that's the drama in this whole 92-page novella is that he is a Pulitzer Prize photographer who's won all these awards and traveled the world and is living in this dingy apartment and hiding because he doesn't want people to know where he's at, and he doesn't tell her. That's the whole drama. Like, the whole drama is that he didn't tell her the truth about what he does for a living. That's it. And I mean, I'd be mad too if my dude lied to me. I'd be like, who cares? You can do what you want to. I don't care if you want to live in a dingy apartment. That's your prerogative, whatever. But she like gets all butthurt about it. And it's a whole thing. But it was a cute book. It's a quick read. I think I would have liked it more if there was more background to the characters. So maybe if they had explained things a little bit better, I would have liked the story. but I feel like there wasn't enough background of the characters. That's the trouble with novellas. I feel like if they're done well, they're fun and they're quick reads. But if they're not done well, you end up wanting more, right? You're like, that would be good if I knew a little more, and that's how I felt with this one. So I would give it maybe like 2 to 3, 2.5, let's say 2.5 stars. And the steam level for this one is about a 4, which it was really weird because Jay comes across as like this really sweet boy next door kind of thing, but then in the scenes that she has them in the bedroom, he like talks dirty, and you're like, where is that coming from? I don't know. And you know me, I don't like a lot of that in my books anyway, so I was kind of like put off by that a little bit. I thought it seemed very out of character, and I don't like all that in my books. So I would say 2.5 stars and 4 steams. The other novella that I downloaded and read was called TheDarkest Night by Fiona Davenport. And I'm just going to be honest with you guys, I hated this one. I don't like to say I hate books because I always feel really bad, because I know as a fellow writer myself how much work you put into writing a story and editing that story and formatting the story and putting covers on it and getting it out, and you know, all the work that comes into writing a story. But I did not like this one, and I don't know that it's 100% on the author. I think this is, let me explain. It's part of a series. So this novella is kind of like, I don't know if I hadn't looked because I didn't care enough to Google this, but I don't know if it falls in between books. I don't know if it's like an extra one that's added on to the end of books, but it's definitely part of a series, and it's a vampire series, right? So you have this vampire meeting a fated mate. And in this novella, he meets his fated mate, and it's totally Insta Love, which, as I've talked about in my tropes videos, I'm not a huge fan of Insta Love, but it's kind of like a fated mate's Insta Love situation, and the whole rest of the book is them in bed. Literally, the whole rest of the story is them in bed. There is no plot. There is absolutely no plot to this entire book. They are just it's how many different ways can we screw in one short novella. And you guys know that I'm a little bit of a prude. A little bit of a prude, lady. Don't like all that in my books anyway. So I'm sitting here and I kept like swiping, because you know I read on my phone app, right? And they're swiping and I'm like, where's the plot? There's no plot. Where's the plot? And maybe it would, like I said, it would have been better because it's a vampire story. So I kept thinking, like, tell me more. Can you go out in the sunlight? Do you drink blood? Are you like the ones on TV? Do you sparkle like Edward? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sitting here waiting for all of this information about how the world works, and how does his brothers work, and how old are they, and they have children? How do they have children? They're vampires. They drink blood, but they have children. I'm so confused. You don't get any of it. And I think it's because it's part of a series. If you read the rest of the books in the series, it probably would make sense. But I felt like it doesn't work as a standalone novel at all. Honestly, with the amount of screwing going on in that book, I would not read the rest of the series. It's not my cup of tea. And one of my goals for 2021 is to allow myself to just be okay with not reading books that have all that in it. So I'm probably going to give it maybe 1 star and 5 steams. But again, the 1 star is just based on the fact that I didn't understand the world. And maybe if I had read the rest of the series and understood more about the characters, this would have been maybe a little bit of a higher rating, but also probably not, because I feel like it didn't have much plot, if that makes sense. Anyway, the third full-length book I read was an actual book, and it is by Francine Rivers. So as you guys know, when I got Redeeming Love, I reviewed that earlier on my channel, I ended up going on Thrift Books to buy that book, and I bought 4 books by Francine. I bought Redeeming Love, I bought the one that I read this week, and I bought like a 2-book series that follows the mother in one book and the daughter in the other book, and I don't know what you call a 2-book series. Is that like a duology? A duet? I know 3 is a trilogy and 4 is considered a series, so I don't know what you consider a book of 2, but anyway, I bought like a whole bunch from her, and this one is called Bridge to Haven by Francine Rivers, and I absolutely love this book. I'm going to be honest with you guys, Francine Rivers is very quickly becoming one of my favorite authors, and here I am, the person who did a whole video about how I hate Christian romance novels because they're usually really stupid or they don't have a very deep plot, and she's breaking all those rules that I've made on what I dislike about Christian romance, because she does such a good job, and she puts so much research into her books. I'm like super impressed, and I think she might be becoming one of my favorite authors. I'm really looking forward to reading the other 2 books I bought. But anyway, Bridge to Haven by Francine Rivers. Very pretty cover, actually. I love how it's got the 50s, 60s-ish looking car. And this book follows a young lady named Abra. I don't know if it's Abra or Abra. It's A-B-R-A. And it follows her from the time she's born all the way to like her 20s. And the book starts with her being left as a baby. Her mother gives birth to her and leaves her under a bridge. And the pastor in town named Pastor Zeke comes and hears her crying because he's taking a walk in the evening. He hears her crying and he finds the baby and brings the baby home. This is the 1930s, of course, so if there was no nobody to take the baby in. So the pastor and his wife decide to take the baby in and foster her. And they have her for the first 5 years of her life until the pastor's wife passes away. And he already has a son that's a few years older, and he's the pastor of the church and has a congregation to look after. So he decides to give her to another couple in the church to raise. And so at 5 years old, you see her go through this transition of being given to another couple and the emotional impact that has on her. And you watch her grow up, right? So that goes through her teenage years. And then later on in her teen years, she runs away from home and she runs off to Hollywood to become an actress. So you see her like in the 1950s, like talking about Marilyn Monroe and talking about Elvis Presley and talking about all these famous actors and actresses of their day, and her doing these different roles and these small parts and blah blah. And it's really cool how much research she did in that part of the book, because you can tell that she really looked up like how things would have been in the 50s. I thought it was really nicely done. And then she hits rock bottom in Hollywood. Obviously, she goes through all the pitfalls that people have when they're out in Hollywood, and she ends up hitting rock bottom, and at that point decides to come home to Haven and to get her life together. Now, throughout this entire story, there's a secondary story of her love story with Joshua, and I'm not going to explain her relationship to Joshua and how it all works out. I mean, it's a romance novel, so you know they end up together at the end, but I won't explain anything else other than that. And to say that it's just beautifully done. You actually see like history in this book, which I love, because Joshua gets sent off to, I think it's the Korean War, I believe. He gets sent off to war, and it talks about him writing letters, and it talks about her not knowing if he's been hurt, and just all the emotions that kind of come along with that. I think it's a really well done look at a piece of history, and this is around the time that my mom was growing up, so it was kind of cool to look at that and realize my mom was actually living and going to school during the time that all of these things in history were happening, and to watch them all be told again in this book was really cool. So I love Francine Rivers, and I'm super looking forward to reading more of her work. And actually, after reading her work, I'm realizing that maybe I have a little bit of a bias against Christian romance and Christian fiction, and perhaps I need to be a little bit more open-minded and give some of these authors some more time to impress me or to give their books a chance. And so one of my goals for this year going forward is going to be a little more open-minded and read some of these authors that I would have not read because of my stigma against boring Christian romance novels, which apparently are not as boring as I thought. Alright guys, that is what I read for this week. What did you guys read this week? Leave me a comment below and tell me what you've been reading and what you read last week that you really loved. And if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you're notified when I upload a new video, and give me a thumbs up if you like what you are seeing. Alright guys, I will talk to you in the next video. Bye!